Hey guys, Razzle Dazzle here, and welcome back to another video. So I'm actually going to go at a bit of a slower pace this time around. Um, got no reason to go any faster. Uh, so I've went ahead and actually did something called a proxy for this video. You might have noticed that this is once again a time-lapse format. Right now I'm circling around the driveway and trying to figure out how long the timings are going to be. Um, but That's actually because the original audio was corrupted, unfortunately. It kind of sounds like I'm speaking like through a Soviet radiator, so not the best. For this video, we're going to be doing something a lot more chill, a lot more relaxed. So go ahead and throw some Spotify on. I'm going to be commenting in and out on the video. I might talk through it, but I might also let you have some peace of mind and just enjoy the time lapse. So yeah, once again, just throw your favorite song on. Uh, you can leave this running, and I'll try not to speak too much, but I can comment here and there. Um, Maybe at some point I'll just stop talking for a little bit and then come back, but yeah. So right now I'm doing something which is taking this original radar texture that you see, and I'm actually finding the proper alignment to grid. You might notice that I hit Shift Q to grab the vertex grid. What's nice about the vertex grid is it's actually coming from a vertex, not a shape. So if you have some wonky angles, you might want to fiddle with it until you get the right vertex grid. Um, I know it's called the local grid, but in practice, it's really a vertex grid. Need a cough. Hold on. Um, so right now I'm talking about the frustration I have with the geometry I've chosen to work with in this video, or at least for this project. And that's kind of something that you probably won't appreciate if the level has been designed properly. Is just how much of the level is really off grid. Um, I think that we sometimes forget like how difficult it is to get things to work when they're all off grid. Um, this project, for this project, I decided to kind of bend the rules a little bit, and pretty much none of this project is on the actual grid. In fact, none of it is on the actual world grid. Not one brush. The whole thing is done in local grid, and using just whatever angle I decided to use. And Viz works fine. Compile time is totally fine. Uh, so that's actually how I'm going to be doing all the projects that I want to in the future. Uh, I mean, the dev grid is kind of useful for beginner map makers, I think, but uh, as your projects become more and more lifelike, I think we can abandon the 45-degree angles. So what I'm doing is I'm testing out the idea here of having a arm of the mansion kind of cantilevered over the dock here. And this is actually different from the drawing, so this is the first time I'm deviating from the drawing. So far I've been following it for the floor quads. Um, and this is actually something that's going to set up the entire rest of the project, is getting this to look right with the arm of the building kind of floating over this dock. I think it's really quite beautiful. Right now I'm actually doing some basic Viz stuff, so I have like the round outer portion set as not a Viz contributor here, and the inside is no draw. You can also use Tools Block Light. I'm electing to use no draw because it's yellow and it's comfortable for me to look at no draw, but functionally I believe they're pretty much exactly the same. Someone from Eagle One Discord is going to be in my comments telling me that they're not, but I mean, all I'd have to do is just select all the no draw on the level and change it to block light, and it would be that. But I'm sure they're not the same. Otherwise, Valve wouldn't have included all the different no draw textures. The only other purpose I've found for using no draw is actually the Demi method of getting doors to be not solid, because you can actually, or models in general, you can copy the model mesh and change it to no draw, and then set it so that players don't interact with it in its physics settings, which is kind of nice. Yeah, Timmy taught me how to do that. I don't know if someone taught him how to do that, but it's really great. It's a wonderful way to get doors to work, and I actually use it later on. Um, there's about probably 4 hours of work that I managed to somehow not record because I was getting ready for a playtest today, and I was just like, I don't want to record it right now. But you can just see right now, and that'll be in the future. You guys don't have to worry about that. And to be honest, this project has been like 50 hours, so there's I don't really care about like the, you know, now that I think about it, it's almost 10% of the work that I kind of excluded. It's just very sad. Well, it's your fault, guys. Yeah, it's all your fault that I didn't hit the record button. It's because you didn't hit subscribe. Right now, I have I still remember the spiel that I went on talking about using slopes versus using the vertex grid, and so I'll just kind of say what I was saying earlier uh, while I was on camera. But the idea is that you can't actually make complex geometry just using slopes. No, slopes are better um, for putting props on a specific angle. Like for example, if you're working on like 3, 4, 5 triangles, so a slope of 3 to 4, um, that's kind of the best one. It's like the Pythagorean triangle. So it follows all of the. I mean, mostly what mappers actually use is the 2 to 1 slope or the 3 to 1 slope, right? So rise of run of 2 to 1 versus rise of run of 3 to 1. So that would be 3 hammer units or 30 hammer units, or most cases it would be 48 hammer units versus 16, or it would be 32 hammer units to what's it to 6 to to 16, 32 to 16, or 8 to 4, or it's literally just a 1 to 2 ratio or 1 to 3 ratio. But that's also called slope. And the useful thing about that is that if you know the precise rise over run, even if it's off grid, kind of like if it's 1 to 12 slope, or that's actually just, well, never mind. If it's if it's 1 to 12 slope, or if it's 1 to 13 slope, even if it's a prime number, um, you can actually use some pretty complex math, which you probably learned in your secondary or high school or whatever. You can use like cosine to figure out what the angle is, or in this case it would be arc cosine or whatever. But you can just take out your calculator and do some simple kind of math to figure out what the angle of your prop needs to be, or you could look it up. All of that information is available online. Slopes for like angles from slopes and whatnot. Um, right now I'm making the stairs. You can see that I'm putting the geometry together. It looks pretty cool. But what I skipped over is actually my process of making the steps to have the certain angle, because what I use is the vertex grid. And you might notice that to make these stairs, I'm going to be switching between different vertex grids and trying to get the alignment right. Because I've made this first one and it's on the same grid as the dock, but now I have to step into a unique grid for the second set of steps, which is going to be different from anything else on the whole map. And the third set of steps will also have a different angle, not slope in this case, but angle from the rest of the map. Really, the only grid that I'm actually adhering to is the z axis, which is height, and I don't really adhere to it all the time. Like, especially with the driveway, you'll see that I really don't. But Counter-Strike gameplay isn't exactly like real life. You know, in real life, there's nothing that's really truly perfectly flat except like the stones used to construct the pyramids of Giza. But we don't have to get into that. Um, no. Uh, oh, I think my stream might have. Oh no, never mind. We're good. Yeah, but in real life, it's a lot easier to. Sorry, in Counter Strike, it's a lot easier to do flat. Not just easier to make levels that are flat, but it's easier to play the game when it's flat. Um, there's something to be said about having like very slight 1 or 2 unit height variation across a path, um, because it'll break up the crazy headshot angles that you get from places like Pit, Long Dust 2. Um, like just having slight deviation will mean that as you're coming up, it's impossible to predict exactly where the headshot angle is going to be. Um, Also, if you're pre-aiming a long angle from a corner and trying to get a one tap on somebody, if even just like a 4 unit difference will be like 1 or 2 pixels on your crosshair, um, which can be a lot if you're like using a deagle and that matters, you know. Um, but you know, it's really nothing. Um, do what you want. If you want your level to be flat, if it's indoors, you should make it flat. Nuke is primarily flat ground, even outside. The nuke level is pretty flat. I'd say the most height variation that you find on the just on the floor in any level, uh, without having any need for the height variation, is that's actually in the game, because I was gonna say that would be cobblestone, with its terrain. The cobblestone terrain is crazy. It's like not flat anywhere. But I was gonna say it's probably Mirage. Like if you just take a look at Med and not Cat. Cat is flat, but like the A bomb site has an entire set of steps running over and through it that you don't really pay attention to when you're in game. But it's like a solid 8 unit difference, and there's really no purpose to have them there except to break up the fight and make you move your mouse slightly up. No, it can't be Mirage. What would it be? Like Inferno? Because I Inferno isn't flat, but it isn't supposed to be flat. Like Mirage is supposed to be flat. If you think about Mirage, you think like all of Catwalk and all of the A bomb site are all on the same level, all the B bomb site as well, and then all of Jungle and Window and Top Mid, like all of it are mostly on the same level, right? There's plenty of height variation still, but like when it's flat, it's actually flat. Which I guess, yeah, Inferno would be the opposite of that, right? Like it's kind of long slopes going down from banana to the bottom of mid, and from bottom mid up to top mid. CT spawn's pretty flat though. Yeah, I guess it's Inferno. I mean, obviously the map with the most height variation is going to be Nuke, right? Like all the way from Heaven all the way down to the lower bomb site has to be the most height variation in an official map. It must be more than Vertigo. Because I'm just thinking, like, even in Vertigo, if you're standing on Boost, which I believe is like the highest point, um, you can't go that deep. I mean, T-spawn isn't actually that far down. Not like compared to Nuke, right? Well, that's a good question. I mean, I don't think there's another official Valve map that actually has that much height variation. Not as much as this one does, that's for sure. Now you might notice that for now I was calling it Sapien. That's because of Homo sapien, which is human beings, and the map is set in a cloning laboratory. So I thought Homo sapien or just sapien would be a lovely map name. It also kind of sounds like a Latin word, you know. But then I was thinking about like I don't know my potential audience, and I was thinking like sapien, Homo. And then I started thinking about Homo erectus. And then I was like, all right, you know, I might like the word sapien, but other people might not. So I changed it actually. So now I'm calling it Oasis. And I'm gonna stick with that. I think it's actually a pretty good name. It's not original. There are tons of maps on the workshop called Oasis, uh, but it is a fitting name, I think. The only other one that I was thinking about is Air, like the French band, because I really like Air. I don't know if you've ever listened to like All I Need or Kelly Watch the Stars, um, but they have some pretty fantastic songs. They're so underrated, but it's kind of like peak French cafe music from like 2002. And I was only barely alive back then. Right now, I'm doing more of this Viz stuff. What I'm actually going to do in a second. So right now, I'm triangulating this geometry. Remember when I said last episode that you want to like mostly quads, or as many quads as possible, but sometimes you can't avoid having tries. This is one of those cases. You don't want to have convex, or is that concave? I know the difference. I just don't know the English word for the difference because I'm stupid. But it's either one or the other. It's the bad kind. You don't want it to be folded like a C shape. You want it to go out, uh, especially if it's going to be a top face like that. So I just triangulated the geometry. That's the best way to do it. You don't want to have you don't want to turn an arch like that into a ton of quads because then you'll just have a ton of loose edges and there's no point. You always want to triangulate arches like that. Um, and the lighting actually works best like that. Um, it's kind of like a best of two evils type. Right now I'm setting up the light entity. This is gonna be my light environment, so I'm gonna change these colors later. Usually want a little bit more yellow than that. I actually kind of doubled the amount of yellowness later because that's like a true off-white. You kind of want something that's like a little bit more like vanilla wafer than that. But this works for like first version. The other thing I haven't set up yet is my sky entity, which I'm probably not going to set up. And you can see I forgot to uncheck cast shadows and bake lighting on this. So I'm going to uncheck both. Bake lighting doesn't really matter because no draw doesn't have lighting baked in game either way, but in Hammer it does have lighting baked, and a lot of this map is going to be no draw. So I made sure to turn off the lighting on all of my no draw. And here I'm going to turn that to no draw as well, unhide, and set that to just a viz only geometry, right? So unbaking, taking off the colors that I've set for it. Oh, did I mention, guys, when you are making maps in CS2, please, please, please do not use dev reflectivity textures. They're actually green. Um, don't ask me why I know that. Long story. But they are green. All of those dev textures have a base amount of noise of blue, purple, and green inlaid on them. I don't know whether it's like a really failed attempt at merging a normal map with with a color texture or what happened, but it's not actually a flat gray image. It is a green and purple image that is very close to looking pure gray, but it is not pure gray. And that's it. So let's move on. Looks like here's where I'm finally deciding on what actually becomes the final version of this. But the key ingredient that I'm missing in my design is I'm thinking that you're going to be able to see the mansion from the secret harbor, even though in my head I know that the secret harbor is going to be in a cave, so you won't be able to see the mansion. And well, I think you can imagine uh, my face when I realized that all of this time that I had just spent coming up with this pathing just wasn't going to work. Here's something else I tried that didn't work: is creating this path from here to there, and you might be able to tell, but that is too long. And that's actually kind of a theme with my map. After having playtested it a few times, is that I've made the map maybe a little too big. Uh, Scale's wrong. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to do another time lapse of me uh, fixing up the sizing, I guess, like the size of the map in the future. So right here, I'm working with my old idea of having like this upper floor of the mansion be a real upper floor. Yeah, I know you can't quite see me doing that yet, but that's because I'm visualizing this as like steps that are coming up like a crack in a bunch of rocks. Um, Here I'm just fixing up some geometry, I think. Yeah, but I'm still not quite um, done with the whole house concept thing. Because what ends up actually happening is the house keeps with the original theme that I had had in the harbor of like the big cantilevers. But in my head, I wanted this house to be like a more traditional modern house that was like implanted on the ground instead of this like floating mansion brutalist design that I've landed on in the end. Um, which is, I mean, they're both going to be a pain in the ass to detail, but I think brutalism is a lot easier to detail than like hyper modern. And this is the moment when I'm realizing that this composition I've just made is actually a total cook, and it's really nice. Here I'm thinking about like what if I connected this up with a ladder. Um, yeah, spoiler, spoiler. I'm connecting this up with a ladder, and it's going to become one of the most defining features of the map. Here I'm thinking about offsetting it from the original angle, and then I'm thinking like, wait, this is like way too long, and so I don't. I'm like, no, I don't like that. I encourage you to do that. Um, like really think about the gameplay while you're doing it, and if you wouldn't want to take the fight, like if you think the fight is like scary, it's probably going to be scary for everybody too. Um, that's the thing about matchmaking is most of the time you're not like a better opponent going against noobs. So I encourage you not to think about you going up against noobs and destroying them on your maps using the angles that you've created. Uh, but instead, you should be thinking about like, what if a better player was going up against you on your map, um, and you want to kill them, uh, which is kind of the same thing in a weird way. I wonder if there's a better way to word that. Someone will find a better way to word what I just said. This is a really cool thing that I found is you can use the bevel tool, the bevel face tool. So there's a bevel edge tool as well, which is gonna like bevel your edge and get you some smooth normals and all that fun stuff. But this is the bevel face tool, which I actually think is twice as useful, or at least twice as useful, because you can use it for so much stuff. Here I'm using it to make the entrance to the vent. Would have taken me like 10 minutes if I didn't have the bevel face tool. Like I would have had to go on to that grid and then individually like move the faces in and then individually move the vertices to their right position and then merge the edges. I don't even want to think about it. Like if thinking about it takes a minute to explain, actually doing it is going to take 10. um, so at this point I'm thinking about loading into the level. So I just want to set up the original spawn, like where the spawns are kind of going to be. Um, what's kind of silly to me is I don't think I've really thought about how long this spiraling path back here is going to take yet. Like, I'm looking at it and thinking it's going to be one of the main battlegrounds of the map for some reason. Like, I'm thinking the whole thing is going to be a big fight. Um, but the reality is that it's kind of this, like, sub-basement to the actual map that doesn't really matter, um, and plays like shit. And yeah, here's where I'm locking in the final geometry of the house. So I guess oh, that must be what I that must be what the footage was that I was missing. Remember when I showed you the entire driveway? I think it was actually longer. I think that I had tried out making the actual house according to the drawing, and then I realized that it wasn't going to work. So here I am making the actual house, and at this point, this is all I think the actual house is going to be, is just one floor with a ridiculous overhang over the entire road, right? And this is what I'm thinking the house will be. It's like a small brutalist Mies van der Rohe inspired house. If you don't know him, he's a great German architect. Um, Only Nelson will disagree. Actually, I don't think Nelson will disagree. I bet he likes Mies van der Rohe. I mean, who doesn't? Actually, I don't. Now that is an interesting development. I guess I don't like Mies van der Rohe. Like, I like him conceptually, but I've seen a bunch of his buildings in real life, and they're boring. It's like airport modern. Um, that's not to say that all modern architecture is boring, but when you're looking for perfection, like when I think of perfection in music, I think of Mozart. There are some days when I want to listen to Mozart, but most of the time I don't really want to listen to Mozart because I much prefer Beethoven. And Beethoven is also kind of weirdly perfect in a way. Uh, in fact, I'd say Mozart and Beethoven have a lot in common. It's just like Mozart is kind of happy, except for Lacrimosa, and Beethoven is pretty much just sad, except for like Ode to Joy. That's not really true. I mean, there's like Beethoven's Fifth. That's not really sad, no, is it? It's kind of angry and goofy. It's kind of goofy, to be honest. Mozart music is like Mozart's music is like an intellectual that's like longing for human connection, but just can't quite get it. I don't know. Like a lot of it is it's all perfect, but like I feel like he's probably going to be his own biggest critic. You know, it's not like anyone else in his era can critique him. It's like the kind of music that like if you like listen to Mozart on the regular, you probably hate yourself. Like low key. It's like you don't think that you're actually good enough, you know? So you listen to Mozart. The irony is, I don't think that Mozart thought he was good enough either. I saw I saw a really good movie that kind of fictionalized Mozart's life, and it turned him into this like playful pervert kind of dude. I don't really think that actually sums him up, but they did capture like that he had a deep side too, and that he had like a real romance, and that life just didn't work out for him. That's kind of more the vibe I get from Mozart. Is like, you know, we're talking about someone who is like a super genius, who was hired to like teach a bunch of wards how to play the piano, not the piano, but the harpsichord, I guess. But like, you know, imagine being him, bro. Like,
born to be a rapper in 2019 and make like a bajillion dollars and own your own music label, and forced to write celestial music for nobility in like the 1600s or the 1500s or whenever he was actually born, 1700s I think. Yeah, and that kind of sucks. Not gonna lie, that kind of really sucks. And being like between rich and starving most of the time too. And here's another defining moment of the map is at this point I'm thinking I'm cooking with the composition just having 2 layers, but soon I'm going to be like, you know what would actually look better? Having 2 layers above ground. Because right now what's actually going on is I have one secret layer underground and then just 1 layer above the ground. But when it comes to houses, you can never have more underground than you have above ground. Otherwise, you're not a human, you're a hobbit, or worse, a dwarf, depending on the ratio. Um, Big brain. Uh, Here, I think I'm putting down the terror response. Yeah, but you can tell I'm kind of slowing down a bit with my progress, right? Like at this point, I'm this is actually something I do a lot, which is a ADHD kind of flying around the map, thinking about it. Um, the reality is I'm kind of caught between ideas, and I'm not really ready to actually do anything yet. Like, look, I just like I'm thinking about the implications of everything that I'm doing as I'm doing it, and trying to get that bigger picture. And this is what actually having a drawing of your map will let you avoid doing later on. Because if I had had a drawing of the map, I would just be rigorously following it and finishing it up. And while you'll have a much more accurate perspective of how your map will play if you're looking out around it in 3D, you can have almost as much of an accurate perspective just by looking at it in 2D uh, on Paint.net or Photoshop or whatever you use. Um, Krita, uh, anything, GIMP. I mean, whatever software you choose to use, but um, you can really have just as good of a perspective working on that. I mean, I can look at pretty much any map just by looking at its radar. Uh, Not maps like CS Wild that are confusing, but like any 3 lane map, I can look at it and I can give you just as much feedback that your first playtest will give you just by looking at the map for like 30 seconds. No, that's not saying that whenever I load the map up, that's when you actually like experience the map. And sometimes my mind will be completely changed, right? Like when I boot into the map and then I think to myself, actually this probably will work. And that's happened a couple of times. You know how radar feedback can be. It's a little shallow. You'll know too. Like you'll look at someone's radar and you'll think like, oh, I've had this guy's map completely figured out, and then you boot it up and something is just different from what you thought it to be. You know, that doesn't happen to me all that often though. Uh, this happened to me a couple times though this year. But most of the time I look at the radar and then I'm like, okay, I'm ready to play the map. You know where that doesn't work out? It's in small maps. If the rotation speed is too quick, um, your map is going to start playing more deathmatchy, and at that point, radar feedback stops mattering at all. Um, in fact, in general, the smaller your map is, the more micro is going to matter, like second by second gameplay, because your decisions start having to be just so much faster. And here's the first time I'm thinking about adding another path back here. Um, the reality is just opening this up a little bit more to the right, and then I'm going to add a squeaky door back there that leads to what I think is going to be a path that goes into the interior of the house, but will eventually actually just be an Easter egg. So I'm about to throw that in there too, in a bit. Not yet though. But yeah, I'm like deeply engrossed and flying around the map right now. I'm thinking about everything and trying to build like a mental image of the map. So I totally encourage you to do that too. But this is sped up like 3 times. So this is like 300% speed, and yeah, I'm not gonna lie, this is freaking slow, man. This is really slow. I wish I could fast forward. In fact, I recommend that you fast forward probably for a while because at this point I'm low key probably compiling. So let's see if I can't do exactly that. I'm gonna stop commentating. So if you're still watching at this point. Hey, so funny enough, actually, I'm about to become not AFK, and so I guess I'll just keep talking because there, I'm back. Um, Ironic. Anyways, back to flying in circles. And now that I've gotten up and I had a little stretch or done whatever, I'm ready to actually get back to work. Um, I guess this is probably one of my strengths and one of my weaknesses is like I know exactly how this entire area is going to look in my head already. Here's me working on the squeaky. I'm going to separate the mesh so that I'm not destroying the beautiful quads that I have elsewhere. Just building the door in here in the corner. But like when I was building the vent, I can still kind of for some reason picture how it felt making that vent, and it's actually a really difficult thing to build, like a little vent like that that connects up to the road. And the thing is, I know exactly how I'm gonna make it, so it's not fun, like if I know exactly how it's supposed to look, any deviation from that is just negative points. So it kind of stops being as rewarding making something that looks good because it's not better than I thought it was going to be. And here I'm thinking about connecting these paths up, and then I'm thinking, no, why would there be a squeaky door that leads into a path that goes up to an elevator bank? But I'm sure I'm going to be stuck on this for a little bit. I actually end up like trying to build a vent that goes that way at some point. Uh, it's really silly. I mean, I'm literally cutting off like maybe 4 seconds of rotation in CT spawn itself. Uh, the reality is that it's a hostage map, and all of the major rotations should go through CT spawn because it's a hostage map. There shouldn't be easy, fast rotations that go between the lanes. Um, think about Office. If you're a CT, are you rotating quickly between the windows on one side of the map and the windows on the other side of the map if you don't control mid? No. There's no fast, easy CT rotation because that's how you ensure that T's, once the hostage is taken, have to go all the way back to the rescue area to hold. Otherwise, they're just going to sit in the Omni connector that you've built and hold both angles at once. Like if I were to build an actual vent that connected these two areas, the T's would just sit in it and wait for CTs to come, and at that point the CTs would have to go down the driveway, and that would just suck because they would be like, I mean that's the worst option to force someone into, right? Is taking the long route. The long route should be like a throw it in there for funsies, kind of like way to go back home, Or if it's your favorite route, take it all the time. Who knows? Yeah, I can't believe I've been cooking on this terrible idea for so long now. It's funny because when I was actually working on it, it didn't really feel that long. Um, but now that I'm watching, I'm realizing I've just spent like 2 minutes. So I've spent like at least 5 minutes making that for no reason. So at this point, I'm moving on to something actually productive, which is just making this elevator room. Um, and now I'm realizing exactly how much height I have to go up. Um, something that I didn't realize earlier, by the way. And I just copy and pasted the meshes and flipped them. By the way, that's how I got the walls to work over here. And you'll notice this is all the same grid as the port, which is really useful. And I'm going to stack these edges up slightly so I can delete those faces. There you go. And now I'm realizing there's a crazy pixel angle here, so there's really two things that I could have done. Yeah, this is what I did, is I closed this elevator and I made it so you jump on the side of it. The other thing I could have done is actually closed the other elevator and then had some sort of a ladder that went up. But I already have a ladder in the vent, So I didn't want to do the same exact thing for this. It just doesn't make sense to do that, you know. Yep, so here's the first elevator. Now is when I realized that I made the other elevator door too wide, but I'm not going to do anything about it until I decide to put doors on the elevator, and that's when I'm going to realize that I didn't make it right. And here's when I realize that I'm, yeah, you know what, I'm not going to keep talking over this. You can watch my mistakes in live action. I'm going to fix them. I'm too embarrassed. So, yeah, enjoy. For the record, I still haven't figured out that I need to delete this. There we go. Much better. In a recent playtest, I actually changed this from a ladder to a boost, and it totally broke the map. Small changes, man. They do a lot. What the heck am I doing? What the heck am I doing? Alright, I don't know what that was about. Hopefully what I'm about to do is actually just find this from the asset browser and drag it on grid. Because that's what I normally do. Because this isn't actually aligned. Yeah, here's the big mistake I was telling you about earlier. This is like the ultimate fail way to do this. Guys watching, just select the face and then hit Control G to thicken it. And then just grab the bottom face and drag it down as much as you want. This what I'm doing right here is stupid. This is not how you do this. Guys. Like if you're gonna do it this way, at least hit Control H when you select the object, and then it'll quick hide everything else, and then you'll just be able to like individually work on that one object, and it'll be faster, so you don't have to like move your camera around stuff. And here's where the next mistake comes in, because I'm making the doors and I'm realizing just now that these doors are wider than those doors. I think I'm getting a little bit tired of making this map in one session, but I don't think I've actually realized that I'm tired yet. Yep, and here's where I know that the elevator shaft is too small in that direction. Now, beginner map makers will do what I just did, but expert map makers will just shrink the size of the elevator a little bit. Unfortunately, the elevator is already the right size, the one on the left anyways. And now is when I realize that I have to change all of the work that I've just did. Yep. Needless to say, there could have been better ways to do that. And it takes me a while to get this right. But if you're watching this with the aim to learn something, don't do that. If you measure twice, you only have to cut once. And in the case of Counter-Strike mapping, if you measure once, you're going to end up needing to either undo like days worth of work, because you can't like select something and undo stuff that you've done to that object in 2025. Yeah, so There's like no way to save or undo progress. Yeah, and here's where I actually have to move everything, and you can see that it's messed up all the quads, which actually highlights how clean my quads have been up until this point. So, yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun getting these back in shape. But I swear, by the way, guys, I don't actually have OCD. No offense to anyone who has OCD, but getting things to line up in Hammer um, is extremely important locally. In general, they don't have to be on grid or anything, but when it comes to actually making like one room and individually, everything should locally be on grid. Um, that's what actually matters most, because you want the vis voxels to be as big as possible. So getting these to line up is important, because although actually I don't think that the voxels can change grids. I think it's all on the real world grid, so maybe it doesn't matter as much as I think it does. Who knows? It's not like I'm an expert or something. Mm. Oh man. So at this point, I think I've realized that I need to change something, and I'm not gonna take this wall further back. So instead, of just change the trim up. Uh, it's that simple. It's not like that's a viz object anyway. I don't think so. It doesn't really matter. Um, here's where I'm separating this object out so that I can bevel the door away from the wall. Um, probably there were faster ways to do this, but I did it this way because I was tired. So yeah, who cares? Beautiful. Look at that excellent geometry. I mean, I'm not just glazing. Like that is genuinely good geometry, and it's important to have good geometry in your levels. Use the vertex grid or the local grid or whatever you want to call it. Here's where I'm testing this angle out. You can really see how much just one drawing will give your level so much depth creatively. Literally just one drawing. And here I'm going to partially close this door to get rid of the deeper parts of that diagonal angle. I don't really mind the shallow ones. It's a learned angle, you know. There's going to be foot angles there, but it's into CT spawn. Like, you're never going to have a fight there. And if there is a fight there, it should be wonk, because you've managed to walk down into like one of the only parts of this map that only has one entrance and one exit. Technically two exits if you count suicide. Okay, let's not do that. Moving on. Right now I'm doing a kill brush underneath the level here with a trigger. That's going to be your trigger underscore hurt. Setting the damage to be ridiculously high, putting it to full. Lovely stuff. I don't think there's any more spawn flags than that. I don't think I'm going to remember to do like a trigger hostage reset for a while, but I'll make the shaft a lot deeper, and then I want to close the bottom of the elevators, both of them, so you can see it from the bottom. I'm splitting up the geometry a little bit more here so the lighting is a bit better. Otherwise the lighting is going to be really bland. This is actually one of the more beautiful rooms in the game, in the level at the end, just because it has so much like metal, nice reflections, nice soundscape. I believe I'm approaching the end of this part of the time lapse, but I might still have a little bit of time left. I wonder if I'm gonna grow the house up yet. Like when I end up making the house, like 5 stories tall, because at this point it's only technically 4 stories. In the end, I think it's 7 stories tall, which is actually kind of ridiculous. No wonder there are elevators. But the elevators go down further. Like there's like an entire secret level that's underneath everything. Yeah, secret island house, big mansion. You get the vibe. cloning laboratory. I wonder what that was used for. Uh, all that fun stuff. So now we're going back to just flying around the level and finding anything useful to do because I'm kind of overwhelmed by all of the ideas that I have. So it's really hard to like actually do anything just because I have so many ideas that like focusing on any one of them is very difficult. Like in my head, I have the entire map visualized, except this. This is dumb. But this isn't dumb though. I think this is yeah, this is my first shot at like kind of completing the house, and I'm thinking like I'll have a lower balcony over here. But then I think I'm gonna look at how it interferes with the driveway and realize that this is a bad idea. Not before I twist it though. I believe I twist it. Oh my god, do you guys remember Bop It? Bop It. Twist it. Pull it. That was a really fun game. Jeez, I need to bop it. No, I'm thinking it's gonna be like an ultra short segment. This is so goofy. It is such a bad idea. Yeah. And eventually, I think I'm gonna realize that I can do something really fun by raising up the main part of the house there. It looks really good when it's finished. So, we'll see if I figure it out right now. Because the final composition is like this 3-tier design where I've actually copied the that bottom wing up further into the air. It's really beautiful. No, I'm gonna do lighting first. Well, you all know how to do lighting. It's just light Omni-2s. Not that deep. Those of you that didn't mute me and are still watching this video, please like and subscribe. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to my dad. Oh yeah, you should always do your lighting in ray tracing mode. By the way, if you haven't figured it out that I'm doing this, I always do my lighting like this, especially in gray box stage. And do your lighting before you put any props in your level, because then you can't do it in ray tracing mode without tons of lag. So I haven't put any props in the level yet, not really anyways, but I'm gonna do my final lighting setup with like all of the lights with their corresponding props before I put any sort of small props detail around. That's just the order that you should do things in. Very important. And yeah, that's the end. I just got invited to join a game. A really nice game of CS with the boys. So yeah, that's it. See you. Just a quick reminder that if you made it this far, please hit the subscribe button. Thank you. Your support means so much to me. Have a great day. Goodbye.